Hello, YouTube. My name is Kelly Chauncey, and I am the Artistic Director at Black Rock Center for the Arts. Since I first began at Black Rock, I've been so excited about Michael Jackson Week, a week celebrating the international king of pop. I'm stoked that we were able to partner with Celebrating the Arts' Rebecca Castillo to premiere her exclusive interview with Eddie Garcia, an incredible dancer and choreographer, to get information about his career and insight on the man himself, Michael Jackson. Special thanks to Rebecca, who approached Black Rock about debuting this incredibly insightful interview. And now, without delay, Celebrating the Arts and Black Rock present Eddie Garcia.
Making magic, moves like music, celebrate the arts. Making magic, moves like music, celebrate the arts.
Eddie Garcia, you're here. How are you doing?
You know what? Considering this has been a very challenging year, I think for the most part, I have no complaints. You know, I've been surrounded by the best people, and I think we've held each other up, and it's been good.
So we're going to talk a little bit about your career. I really want to talk to you about your days like with Michael. But
Okay.
how did you get started? Did you always want to be a dancer?
Yeah, I started tap dancing when I was young, so I was probably about 7 or 8 tap dancing. I was introduced to ballet and jazz. I'm so grateful to them because it's because of the Dupre Dance Academy and all the wonderful teachers that I had there. They really provided me with an opportunity to be able to do what I was doing. You know, they were the best of the best, and they were kind and they were tough. Everything about them was amazing, and they were all different, and which is another thing. They were really eclectic, and they all invested themselves into what I was doing, and other dancers as well. But it's really because of those teachers that I was able to. It was during one of my classes I was in, one of my teachers, Jackie Slight's class, and Paula Abdul came to watch. So she was there with her assistant, and after the class, they approached me and they said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a video?" I was like, "Sure," and I was 16. So I was like, "Okay." So I talked to my parents, and they're like, "Oh, sure. Well, who's it for?" And I was like, "Janet Jackson. I think she's like Michael Jackson's sister. Because this is before."
Oh yeah.
Like she had done 2 albums, but not everybody still considered her Michael's little sister. And then I was there for the Control album and her breakout, and it really helped establish a work ethic for me, being around her and all the different dancers that I got to work with in Paula. They really because of them. I mean, it really just set everything up for me. And then within a year, I was working for Michael.
This is 35 years in the making for me to talk to you, because the first time I saw you was you spinning around, doing those magical pirouette turns in that Janet Jackson video. And I remember going to my ballet teacher and saying, "This is what I want to look like." Thank you from one dancer to another. Thank you for being such an inspiration.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. You made my day.
It was in the Janet Jackson Nasty Boys music video that Paula Abdul hired him for, and those pirouette turns gave Eddie the opportunity to go on and work with Janet Jackson's older brother, who just happened to be the biggest superstar on the planet, Michael Jackson.
I went to the audition for Smooth Criminal, and it was because I was in the video. While I was doing the video, he spoke to me one day out of nowhere, like he just started talking to me, and he's like, "Hey, you know my sister?" And I was like, "I do." And he's like, "Yeah, you do all the turns in her video," and I was like, "I do." And he's like, "Was that a camera trick?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "That's what she said." And I was like, cool. And
And
that
you
was
never
like,
lost your hat.
no, well, it was pinned in there. Yeah, I was pinned in there
Pin it.
pretty good. I did lose it. You just didn't see that take.
Oh. And you can't think or hear the song without seeing actually the video in your head.
Oh yeah.
Like you can, you know, you hear the music, but you can actually see the video because they would play it constantly on MTV, and it was iconic. You were a part of that. Like
I
that's
was,
huge.
like I said, it was a blessing. And again, I'm just grateful for the choreographers that gave me the opportunity. You know, I was young and still learning so much, just being around them and being around all those wonderful dancers, and they all took me under the wings, and they all offered me advice and did things that, you know, basically just showing me this is the way you have to do it so that you can succeed. So like when I went on tour, I was able to understand what was going on. You know, it's like, this is how you behave, this is how you don't behave, you know. And even on tour, the band members and the singers, they all took me under their wings. You know, they're like, you're the young one, don't mess up. And I was like, okay. You know, and I can't thank them enough for that. You know, they kept me on the straight path.
How was Michael as a boss?
You know, he was funny. He was quiet until he wasn't, you know. So I think our group really had a special connection with him, because when we first started on the Bad Tour, it was the four dancers and him in a dance studio by ourselves, kind of piecing a show together. And it wasn't until later Vince Patterson came in, and before we did the United States and Europe, Vince came in and redid the show and just made it a more of a show that I think highlighted him more than the one we were doing just prior to that. Like, it really showed off what he was best at. So, but the opportunity for us to bond on that first leg when we went to Japan was amazing. I got to see his personality. He talked to us. That intimacy of being just us was something that I think I'm again pretty blessed, because you don't usually get that with artists. You come in, there's a choreographer, you do your job. And everybody's usually polite, but you know, but that bonding, we were like a family on that Bad Tour. They'd have dinners for us, and it was a whole group. Like, he always included us as much as he could.
That tour, I mean, the Bad Tour was amazing. And then of course Dangerous comes around, and it's like, can you top that, right? But he's like the greatest artist that ever walked this earth. Of course he can top it. It's Michael Jackson. But the two are very, very different from each other.
I think working with Vincent and working with Kenny Ortega, those two really had a good sense of who he was.
Yeah.
And were able to bring out some magical moments, you know, and things. I mean, people that went to those shows experienced something that, from what it's weird, because being on stage, you experience something different than what the audience does. To be on stage, it's different because you see people and you hear them, but it's different because you're really kind of vibing with the people on stage, you know. So you're focused on, you get the energy from the audience, but you share the energy with each other on stage.
Michael Jackson, being the visionary that he was, sought out to find dancers who were not only the best of the best, but who could deliver his vision and match his energy. For the Bad Tour, under the direction of Vincent Patterson, he found his vision in principal dancers Eddie Garcia, Lavelle Smith, Randy Allaire, and Dominic Lucero.
And that, what was cool about our group too, is we all were so different in our personalities.
Yeah.
And
very unique.
Different in our personalities, different in our looks, different. He wanted to have a representation of everybody on stage, and it kept it, even every group after that, evolving and evolving and adding more of that, so that people saw the representation on stage, which I thought was magical, because he was one of the first to do it.
Yes, he was.
And we were like a family.
How was the preparation? How long were the rehearsals for? Because it was like top notch. Like, there wasn't, I mean, I'm sure there were mistakes that we didn't see, but they were just, I mean, straight through, like, perfection.
for the first leg, we did about 2 weeks. This is when we did our first leg, and we came back though and we fixed the show. I think that we took about a month. Like we really went in. I know we were in Pensacola for, I think we were in Pensacola for about a week, where we actually had, like, they had a small arena and we put up the stage and we did everything. And because he wanted to test everything before we started touring the States.
Yeah.
So once that version of the show, that's the Wembley show. That's what a lot of people saw. It was that version.
Oof. What a
Yeah.
time.
For Dangerous, I don't remember. I think it was, again, like 3 to 4 weeks. A lot of things we knew, but then there were new things. So we were, there were things that we were still like evolving and changing, and new places where we added new songs. So that's what the cool part is, like, oh, okay, our characters are going to be different in this one.
By the time they did the Dangerous tour under the direction of Kenny Ortega, the original lineup added Jamie King, who replaced Dominic Lucero, who had left to pursue other ventures and passed away shortly after.
It was our very first show, and we were underneath the stage, and I was shaking. I was young, and I'm sitting there, and he looked over at me, and we're in Japan, and he looks at me, because we're all like, we have these steps. We all had individual steps to walk up, and come up out of these panels, but we're next to each other underneath the stage, like crouched down. And he's like, sees me shaking because my hand's like going like this. He's like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, and then he was like, "That's good." He goes, "It's good. It means you care." And he goes, "Take this moment in, because it's the only time you're ever going to feel this moment here, that very first pow." And he goes, "And then go out there and hurt him." And I went, "Okay." And then you feel like a superhero up there. You feel like he was like, let the person in the back row have the same show as the person in the front row. Like, give them, give them everything you got.
The audience would experience at every show the energy and perfection only expected from Michael Jackson, and whose dancers delivered night after night.
Okay, you went on tour. You were in Smooth Criminal. That's another thing. I want to talk to you about Smooth Criminal. Okay. I'm going to put my cards down because, all right, listen, that trick where you go forward, that magic, I'm sure people are still to this day like scratching their head, like, how did they do that? Like, how did you guys do that?
Well, the way it was done in the video is a camera trick. Like it is specifically designed for the camera.
The lean, seen in the Smooth Criminal music video, blew everyone's mind, making it one of the most popular music videos played on MTV.
The way we did it on tour didn't exist when we went on tour the first time. And then it took a very clever magician to figure out how to do it. And then he presented it to Michael and said, "Hey, look at what we could do." And Michael was like, "That's the coolest thing ever." So Kenny incorporated that into the Dangerous tour, and that's when we started doing it live.
Seeing the lean live was a huge surprise to the fans that attended the Dangerous tour. Because how could MJ actually pull it off? But he did. Boy, did he ever.
Nobody ever thought they'd ever see the lean live. And then once they saw it, it was like, but it's one of those things. Like, I remember when we did, I was kind of a guinea pig, doing it. But I remember Michael was very, like, his message is, because I did a lot of the magic tricks. He's like, "Don't ever tell him how it's done." And I was like, "Okay." But you can Google it. And I know it's out there on Google. So I've always made it a point not to tell people, but it is out there. And I've seen people create it. Like they've recreated it on their own. They figured it out.
Yeah. The first time I saw that trick was Wizard of Oz. you
Oh,
see the Tin Man do it.
oh yeah.
And
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And so when I saw it in Smooth Criminal, I was like, look, Michael Jackson is just, he's the man, because he watched movies and was a lover of movies, that he wanted that to incorporate that. And so he did it.
He loved musicals and was always inspired by musicals, and he was inspired by Fred Astaire was like he's
Yeah.
a huge inspiration to him. Smooth Criminal was inspired by Fred Astaire.
And his whole, like, the socks was Gene Kelly, so you could see his feet. And
Yes.
Bob Fosse as the snake in
Yes.
The Little Prince. So you see little splashes of his influences, and it's just amazing to see this new generation of dancers now being inspired by Michael Jackson, but they don't realize that in there's Bob Fosse and Fred Astaire and all these greats, Gene Kelly.
It's
So
what I always
phenomenal.
try to like, because I work with kids, and I'm always telling them that it's like it's wonderful to be in the moment, but learn about your history, like learn about the past, learn about the things that came before, because you'll be so surprised how many things that you think are cool now that are just a different version of something that came before. And my teachers had taught me that if you want to be a dancer, you can't just look at what's current. You have to go back and learn about why certain things were so cool when they were, and it'll inform you and teach you how to be better at what's current.
Inspired by the great Gene Kelly, who had danced on screen with an animated character, Michael Jackson created his video for Speed Demon with the help of Eddie Garcia, who was the dancer used for Spike the Rabbit.
How did they film that? Because were you a stand-in, or because I know it was like claymation?
So yes, what they did is they filmed Michael, and then they filmed Michael and myself, and then they filmed me, and then they filmed just the background, and then the claymator, who was the guy that created the raisins, the California raisins. Yeah, he took footage and he combined things that he saw Michael do and that I did, and he combined us, and so there are things that the rabbit does I know is me, because I remember I was like, oh, I did that, and there are things he does that's definitely Michael. You can kind of tell in the movement, like I'm like, that's very Michael, and then, that's not that, because they wanted Spike to be a little different.
It's still the same, iconic. Like, that time is like, I mean, everything that he put out, even like This Is It, when you see it, it's like you see the genius. Like, he wasn't a musician, but he could just be like,
But
and then
he played piano. Yeah, he played piano. And I'm sure he played other instruments. He again, that's where I think he always kind of kept it quiet. And he beatboxed like you don't even know. Like, there was one time we were in England somewhere, and a monsoon happened, so it was just like pouring, so we had to leave the stage. And as we left the stage, he goes, I need a mic. And they brought him a mic, and he's like, how you doing? And they're like, and then he's like, and then he started beatboxing, and then he started singing, and he would sing little parts and then do like shouts with the audience to keep them engaged while the rain was happening.
And then they would,
yes.
You shared time, and he was your boss, and you went on tour with him and got to see those personal moments with him. And he was a human being with you, because I see the superstar, I see the dancer, the singer, the showman. And to be able to hear those stories about him, it makes me love him even more, because he's so missed.
And I think people forget when you see these people that you look up to, you still have to, like, that's the thing that, again, that my teachers taught me. When you work for these people, remember, they're your boss, they're people. Do your best. If they want to approach you and they want you, they'll approach you, and they'll if not, you stay humble, you stay quiet, you just be. He opened himself up to us, which was very, like, he was so kind to myself and so kind to my family. And And I ran into him years after I'd stopped working for him at a record store, and he sat and talked to me for like 40 minutes, talking about life and his kids, because he had his kids now, and how much he missed those days that we did what we did, like it was because he was on a break, like he wasn't doing anything at the time. And because he loved being the stage aspect, the show, he loved. The touring part of it was hard. The stage part was that when you can make people feel stuff with your songs and what you're doing, your performance, that was special. And everybody I've ever seen that's like him, as like these superstars, they're all like that. That what they get from the audience and what they give back is always there.
As part of Michael Jackson's dancers, Eddie Garcia got to be on the biggest stages around the world, including the Super Bowl halftime show, which became the performance all others would try to top.
I always talk about being blessed, but really blessed to be, I've had these opportunities to be in these moments that have been meant something to people, which is really, really like, I'm like, okay, thank you so much, because, it's not me, it's for me, it's like, I've just been kind of the vessel that's been put in those places.
Yeah, but you're there for a reason. It's your
Well,
talent.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Eddie Garcia's career took off as part of the Guys Next Door, a 90s version of the Monkees. And as Johnny Dakota on Saved by the Bell. Nowadays, Mr. Eddie, as his students call him, is polishing the next generation of dancers.
Yeah.
Eddie, where were you when you heard that he passed?
I was
Were you
working
in
on
LA?
I was working on a film, and it was with Forrest Whitaker and America Ferrera.
Ferrera. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember I got a text message from Lavelle. Something's up with Mike. Huh? And he goes, I'll call you. And then he called me and he goes, hey, they called me from the office. I don't know what's going on, but I'll call you back. And then the third one, all of the things went off. And Forrest Whitaker came up to me because he had heard, and he goes, I'm really sorry to hear about your friend. And I was like, it was really sweet. Like, he was so humble and so nice, and like, it meant a lot to me, because again, you're working on a film. He didn't have to do that.
No, yeah.
To have the opportunity to be around those people at that time was really special for me, because as tragic as it was, they kept me
like a sunset, dying with the rising of the moon.
On June 25th, 2009, the music stopped.
You never realize how many days you have on earth. It's important to surround yourself with the people that are real and will hold you up, but not hold you up like a trophy. They'll hold you up as like they got your back, and we have a habit of wanting to tear down our heroes. We see somebody and we want to see the flaws because their life can't be more perfect than mine. Like, Michael, I just think so many people put so much pressure on him, and so many people have ideas of who he is that don't. I go by how he was with me. I don't make any judgments on what people want to perceive or not perceive. And I know what he was like when I was always around him. So for me, that's what I go off of. And there's nothing you can change that, because you can't change it for me. That's not my experience.
Who's been your favorite to work with?
They all have something special. Mike was the most special for me because it's the most iconic, and it was in my youth. Like, I was 18. Like, it's like, that was my college. My college years were being on tour with Michael Jackson. It's like, that's a crazy way to see the world, and literally seeing the world, and so that's the most special as far as that experience. But anytime I get to work with people, there's a new, I don't know, it's like there's always something new and cool and fun, and those opportunities when they're presented, when I get to work for friends or former students who become choreographers, those are really special and awesome. And it's hopefully a reflection of how wonderful my teachers were. I don't think people appreciate the teachers as much as they should in all aspects. Like our educational teachers, our dance teachers, our acting, all those teachers help mold you.
Yeah.
And if you have success of any kind, don't forget that. You also are a representation of them.
Well, I always ask this question of my guests because it's called Celebrating the Arts, right? So what do the arts mean to you?
Movement is universal. It gets labeled as certain things, but it's still movement, so the opportunity to perform and create something, that can make people feel. I think that's the key to art. And I always tell my kids, it's like, the trophy isn't as important as the feeling you get when you're on the stage. That's the trophy you take home. That's the trophy that's going to always be with you. That's the thing that's going to make you feel great. Trophies are cool, but they're not the end all. Having the skill to dance is only this much of the art form. Having the heart and the soul of the dance is what's going to, one, sustain you and allow you to do it for many more years than you ever thought. And it just won't get old, and it can be challenging at times. It hasn't always been easy for me. I've had to evolve, and as I change and get older, and I'm not capable of doing some things that maybe I did when I was younger, that can get frustrating because your brain says yes, but your body says we're about to go to the doctor. Okay.
As somebody who has worked with the biggest names, Paula, Janet, the biggest one of all, Michael, of course, what advice would you give to a young dancer, or somebody that wants to take up dancing, that wants to maybe be like you someday and dance with the icons of today?
I think it's important that they listen. They have to understand that corrections aren't meaning that they're doing something wrong or bad. Like, take your correction, fix it, listen, stay humble. Don't get full of yourself, because that'll come back and bite you. I've seen dancers who are super talented get really a little too much in there, and then no one wants to work with them. And their reputation, at the end of the day, it does catch up to you, and so you stay humble, and you have to be appreciative. One day you might be boss, one day you might be dancing for the person that you hired, and that's okay. Like, it's fun that way. It's our duty to set up the youth for success, not to set them up for failure. Like, let's set them up so they can succeed in other things, because those are the things that will last.
What has lasted throughout has been Eddie Garcia's undeniable contribution to iconic moments in music video, television, and concert tours. And that will inspire dancers for years to come.
And everybody that's out there, if I have anything to say, it's just, again, I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to share some of my stories. I hope that, you can take the time each day, just be grateful and thankful for everything you have. It's real easy to get stuck in the other stuff, and myself included. I've been there, and my wife has always encouraged me to find the other side of it, and my sister too. So I just want to pass that along.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for passing that along because like I said, you are my inspiration.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
so it's nice to be able to speak with someone who inspired me so much and gave so much to the entertainment world. And like you're just an icon. So I consider you one of the best of the best. So
But I appreciate it. Thank you. Again, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
thank you.
making magic.